short while ago, President Trump leaving that courthouse yet again in New York under threat that he may be thrown in jail for violating an unconstitutional gag order. The judge making that threat today. Here's President Trump on what might happen next.
Because this judge has given me a gag order and said you'll go to jail if you violate it. And frankly, you know what? Our Constitution is much more important than jail. It's not even close. I'll do that sacrifice any day. But what's happening here is a disgrace, and the appellate courts ought to get involved.
Yeah, so the president would like the appellate courts to get involved. Will they? Let's ask one of his attorneys. Will Scharf is a candidate for attorney general in Missouri and an attorney for President Trump. Sir, good to have you back with us.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks so much for having me.
I want to talk about the contours of this gag order first. I know that it's crazy restrictive. He's not allowed to even talk about Matthew Colangelo, the guy who came from the Department of Justice under Joe Biden, now works as a line prosecutor for Alvin Bragg and led off the hearing here. He's not allowed to mention that, which is crazy to me. How restrictive is this gag order, if you could describe it for us?
Yeah, it's incredibly restrictive. It says that basically we can't make statements relating to potential witnesses and their testimony. We can't make statements about any member of the prosecution team other than DA Alvin Bragg, so I will not say the name that you just mentioned. We're not allowed to talk about any family members of the prosecution or of the judge, which has obvious relevance in terms of our motion to recuse Judge Merchan off of this case. And part of the problem here, we've dealt with these gag orders before, most notably in D.C., but this gag order is very vaguely worded. It doesn't really clearly define what is and isn't prohibited, particularly with respect to talking about witnesses. And as a result, it's having a chilling effect on our ability to speak, President Trump's ability to speak, even beyond just I guess, a more narrow interpretation of what the gag order says. And that actually came out in court the other day when Judge Merchan basically said, if it's close to the line, if you're thinking about it, just don't say it, which, speaks to the unconstitutionality of the gag order, speaks to the fact that it is chilling speech, that it's not allowed to chill constitutionally.
So, I want to get to the judge's reasoning. Inside of the gag order itself, he seemed to lay out an explanation for why he adopted this gag order. And I read it and was horrified by it because it seems unconstitutional. But the basic logic of it looks like it's, well, if President Trump talks about someone or any of his team talks about someone, they may feel intimidated. Therefore, you're not allowed to discuss anybody around this case. Do I have that right?
Yeah, basically. And they also rely on a constitutionally impermissible heckler's veto theory, that if President Trump says something that may be totally fine, other people may say things or do things that would then intrude on the process. So constitutionally, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to take actions of third parties and attribute them to the principle in terms of restrictions on free speech. So this gag order is just deeply problematic for a large number of reasons. And I would just add that the core of the First Amendment, the absolute core, is political speech, is political electioneering. The courts have consistently held that, and the courts have consistently rejected, historically, attempts to apply gag orders to political candidates. This is the first gag order of its kind ever to apply to a political candidate like President Trump the way that it does. And that's just a real problem. We're at the height of a presidential election, and President Trump can't speak about matters of public importance. It's constitutionally totally invalid.
As of today, the judge is holding that President Trump has violated his gag order on 10 occasions, thus fining him $10,000 in total, which is the statutory limit in New York. He does say that he has available to him the ability to throw President Trump in jail. He has made that threat twice now over the course of these findings of the violation of the gag order in his view. But this one seemed pretty insistent today. Going forward, this court will have to consider a jail sanction. Give us a sense of your team's reaction to that he's now threatening to imprison Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, look, we're challenging the gag order in the appellate courts. We're hoping the appellate division gives us some relief on a speedy timeline, because this is just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. I mean, the idea that the violation that was in court today related to a pretty innocuous statement that President Trump made that I don't believe violated the gag order. President Trump certainly didn't believe it violated the gag order about the jury pool composition in New York. Not really controversial at all, certainly not within the heart of the gag order. So the idea that Judge Merchan feels empowered to throw President Trump in jail over, these sort of borderline cases where he may or may not have actually violated that's just a power trip. And it's deeply scary. I mean, I think we're down the road of sort of a banana republic here, where you have the leading candidate for president being threatened with jail for speaking his mind about an issue of public importance. I mean, it's just totally violative of our constitutional tradition.
You said you have this before the appellate court. How quickly could they move? What is possible here?
So we filed, actually, I think it was a couple weeks ago, in front of the appellate division, and they haven't given a ruling yet. I don't want to sort of jump the gun, but we are going to be taking further action this week to try to queue that up for an appellate decision. And we're certainly hopeful that we get a result quickly, because with each passing day, irreparable constitutional harm is being imposed on President Trump and our team by this gag order. So I'm certainly hopeful that they move on it. From there, if we don't get the judgment that we want, we'd have to go up to the New York Court of Appeals. And from there, we could potentially take this to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, that's how serious an issue it is. Hopefully, the trial is over long before that would be a possibility, and hopefully, we get some relief by the New York appellate courts, who have actually been pretty good to us in other cases. The civil case where they overruled Goron a bunch of times. We feel good about that court, so hopefully, they do the right thing.
I know that you're here, of course, to give President Trump good legal advice. But it was interesting to hear him today say that this threat that he may be thrown in jail by Judge Merchan is a sacrifice that he would do any day. What is give us a sense of how his demeanor is right now around all of this. It's a pretty big deal if a judge threatens to throw you in jail. Is he sincere about this?
Yeah, President Trump cares deeply about the Constitution and the rule of law. I saw this when I was working with him on our presidential immunity appeal. It was up before the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago. He believes, really from the bottom of his heart, that what they're doing to him with all of these cases is not just attempting to do damage to him. It's really doing damage to the fabric of our republic. And I think he really means that when he says it. Now, I certainly hope it doesn't get to that. I think it would be outrageous for Judge Merchan to attempt to do that, and I hope the judge knows that. But we'll see how it plays out.
Do you think that Donald Trump and his campaign are prepared to conduct a campaign from jail?
I don't think that's a realistic possibility. I'll say that. And I just don't think it's going to come to that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, that's the threat today. Let's talk about the length of the trial. The president indicated today that the prosecution, the Alvin Bragg side of the House, is now suggesting that this trial may go on for another 2 to 3 weeks. Can you give us a sense of what that conversation was?
Yeah, that was towards the end of court today. Judge Merchan, after the jury was out, Judge Merchan asked the lawyers for an estimate on how much time is left. That was the prosecution's estimate. It's worth noting there are a couple of days where court will be off in the next couple of weeks. But 2 to 3 weeks, I think, is in line with what we were expecting here, 2 to 3 weeks more. They have a lot more witnesses to get through. And then we'll see, what evidence we need to put up in terms of witness testimony, documents, et cetera. That'll depend on, I guess, the perceived strength of the prosecution's case. Right now, we perceive the strength of the prosecution's case as being very, very weak. So that could affect the timing as well. But I think we're all hoping to get President Trump out of court and back on the campaign trail as quickly as possible.
So when they make an estimate of 2 to 3 weeks, they're only talking about the prosecution's case. They're not even talking about the time required for your side to present the counterargument.
That's correct. The defense case and then closing arguments. And then, after the jury is charged, which can be a complicated process, they've got to go and decide this mess. So we're in for this is not wrapping up anytime soon. We're in for a little wait here.
So just finally on this time issue, that suggests to me that this is looking more like at least 4 weeks more of trial.
That could very well be the case.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll see. But the thing, the big takeaway I'm getting from you here, Will Scharf, and thank you for your time today, is that you are moving with all due haste to try and file the higher courts here to stop Judge Merchan from what you have already laid out many times to be a very unconstitutional gag order in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, we believe this gag order absolutely has to be overturned. We're going to do everything we can to do that. It's just ridiculous, the amount of speech that it's chilling, really, at the core of the First Amendment. We dealt with something similar with Judge Chutkan in D.C. We got the D.C. Circuit to overrule really the most problematic parts of that gag order. We're certainly hoping that the same happens in New York.
Well, once you're liberated from this gag order, I'll be super pleased to talk to you about all of the things that we've been talking about on the show. I know that you're hemmed in right now, unfortunately. Will Scharf, thank you very much for your time as always, sir.
I greatly look forward to that. Thanks for having me.
Can't wait. That's Will Scharf, candidate for Attorney General in Missouri and an attorney now for President Trump.